Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tough Talking Thursday. My name is Dennis Jha, and we're broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. In this edition of Tough Talking Thursday, we're going to be looking at the justice system in Liberia, Liberian justice system. My guest, we have Councillor Frederick Jayweh. Councillor Jayweh, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you very much, Dennis. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you, Councillor Jayweh. We also have a product of WAPLO Institute, Mr. Mohamed Sherif. He's FOL political analyst. Mr. Sherif, welcome. Focus on Liberia.
It's great to be here, Dennis. Thank you.
We also have Mrs. Cllr Family. She's our policy analyst. Cllr, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Always a pleasure to be here.
Last and definitely not the least is our chief political analyst who is joining us from the nation's capital, Monrovia. As you can see, Mr. Wilmot Kunney. He's a proponent. No, he's going to talk about that one. Mr. Kunney, welcome to Focus on Liberia. Mr. Kunney, can you hear me?
Thank you, Dennis. Happy to be here.
Great.
Yes, I can hear you. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
That is wonderful. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. Again, this is Focus on Liberia. And we are broadcasting from Atlanta, Georgia. So, is the justice system. Before we even start this, let's get an idea when we say justice. What do we mean? And I want to start with some few quotes. And these quotes about justice, the first one is from the Holy Bible, Amos 5:24. But let justice roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. We also have a justice quote from the Holy Quran. O you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it is against yourselves or parents and relatives. We also look at Dr. Martin Luther King. His quote about justice says, justice denied anywhere diminishes justice everywhere. We don't want to stop there. We go to our African proverbs on justice. Maize cannot get justice in a chicken's court. That's an East African proverb talking about kangaroo justice. So let's start this thing about justice by asking the councillor. Councillor, when we say the Liberian justice system, what are we talking about here?
Well, thank you, Dennis, for the question. In Liberia, we have two types of justice system. We may refer to the civil law justice process and the criminal law justice process. Depending upon what the issue is, the case may start with the civil law code if it is a civil case, and it could start with any of the criminal courts if it's a criminal case. Generally, the two institutions are intended to allow fair play and transparency to occur as people appear before them. And I'm choosing my word, to occur as people appear before them.
Thank you. So when you say civil justice system and criminal justice system, what's the difference? Quickly.
Well, quickly, the civil justice system is, I owe you money, you decide to sue me and collect whatever money I owe you, or I'm on your property, or I have a lease agreement with you. So the civil justice system commences by the issuance of a writ of summons. An accused or a defendant is never arrested and brought to court. His liberty or her liberty would not be restrained as a result of a civil case. So a summons is served on the defendant. The defendant has in Liberia, the defendant has 10 days to appear and answer to the complaint. The defendant may choose not to appear. And then the court may proceed by entering a judgment by default if the plaintiff will prove his case or her case. In other words, there's much more room for the defendant to walk as compared to the criminal justice system. The criminal justice system, a defendant is brought under the jurisdiction of the court two ways. If the case started in the magistrate court, it could be by a complaint, and then a writ of arrest could be issued. I'd like to be a little bit clearer. A magistrate court has the authority under the laws of Liberia to issue a writ of arrest for any crime. So it shouldn't be surprising if a magistrate issuing a writ. After an indictment, once the writ is issued, the defendant could be arrested. His or her liberty is restrained. He is not allowed, or she is not allowed to proceed to go anywhere else. She or he is brought onto the court, and either there could be pretrial detention and so forth.
So for criminal is when you commit a crime.
Yes.
Civil is when
there's a transaction between two private parties.
Two private parties. So for most part, we'll be concentrating mainly on our criminal justice system. But let me go to the law enforcement officer, Mr. Kunney. Mr. Kunney, you've been involved as a police officer in the criminal justice system. How would you describe the Liberian criminal justice system? Mr. Kunney, can you hear me?
The justice system in our country, you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the justice system in our country is like any other institution. It has its own set of problems, challenges, difficulties. But as you indicated, there are three components to the criminal justice system. You have the police/law enforcement, you have the courts, you have corrections. I was privileged and fortunate to work in law enforcement, which is where the police is located. Our role is to maintain public peace, we are the frontline staff to arrest criminals and then bring them to the attention of the court. And then it is the role of the court to adjudicate and determine the guilt or the non-guilty of individuals that are arrested by the police or by law enforcement. But like I said, there are a lot of issues that if you go across the spectrum, that all of those components have experienced over the time. There are issues that are unique to each one of them. If you talk about police, if you talk about law enforcement, there are issues that are very unique to law enforcement in terms of their role in the criminal justice system, and then also the role of the court as it impact the entire system. What is true though is that the three components of the system impact one another. They impact one another. Police arrest, the court adjudicate, and then corrections, they're supposed to carry on rehabilitation and making sure that people serve their sentences. The way they operate, all of that has an impact on the entire system.
Let me go to Cllr from the policy perspective. Cllr, you work in Liberia, you have an idea about our justice system. Tell me how important this piece is in carry on the governance of the country, and how does a policy, or how do policy issues play a role in what we see today as our criminal justice system?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what justice is first, please. So it's a philosophical conversation, and it has to do with, the ethical and philosophical idea that people should be treated fairly and impartially, and they should all be properly and equally represented reasonably, within reason by the law. So we have to understand that when we talk about how justice plays out, we must first know what justice is. And importantly, the important underlying factor here is law, right? So you have to have a legal education system that is able to properly prepare people to practice law and to administer justice. So if you have a breakdown in the legal education process, there can be justice cannot be executed properly and fairly. So some of the things that, legal education does. It teaches people how to think critically, how to use argument and be able to reason. They also have to philosophically understand their bounden duty, their fiduciary responsibility to apply the law equally. This is lawyers, this is judges. So we have to look at that entire mechanism that supports the legal process in order for us to really discuss justice. Because if you're not properly prepared to understand laws correctly as they were intended or interpret law, you are not going to be able to dispense justice as a judge, as a lawyer. If you're a law enforcement person and you don't understand people's basic rights as citizens, you're not going to be able to enforce the law properly. So in the concept of public policy, all of these things cannot be looked at, individually and compartmentally. They must be looked at as a whole. And I think that my experience in Liberia is that while people attempt to train police, I know some very, very good officers that have come out of the police academy and have taught at the police academy, but the vast majority of the citizens, myself included, do not believe that the average law enforcement officer understands fully what the laws are and how they apply to citizens, and nor do they apply them equally. It is the same thing with lawyers. And so before we even get into ideas of corruption and bribery and all of this stuff, the idea of just basically understanding, even if you intend to do things correctly and intend to do the right thing, we should question whether or not the people who are put in charge of these responsibilities, if they have the capability to execute these things correctly.
Thank you, Deco. Mr. Sherif, the justice system, as we even begin to think about it, okay, by the time someone say the justice system in Liberia, something jumps in your mind. And let's take me back historically. How will you describe the Liberian justice system from as far back as you can remember till now?
Well, so in order to understand present reality, right? So we tend to go back down memory lane to look at historical antecedents to see whether or not what is occurring now is there something that we can glean from our past experience. One of the things that jumps out to me right now is the impeachment of Cabinet Jane. Forgive me for bringing this back, but I'm bringing it back in the context of justice, in the context of what we're discussing right now. In the year 1914, that said, in the year 1914, T. McKenzie Stewart, a civil rights advocate, almost like a Pan-Africanist, was Associate Justice of the Supreme Court. McKenzie Stewart is a graduate of Howard and the University of South Carolina. McKenzie Stewart moved to Liberia in the late 1800s and became Associate Justice. President Daniel E. Howard appointed McKenzie Stewart. McKenzie Stewart was not someone who was quiet. So he went on to criticize President Daniel E. Howard, which caused his impeachment. He was impeached in 1914. So 73 years later, in 1987, we saw that Justice Cllr Chippo was impeached under the leadership of Samuel Doe. These were, and keep in mind, I'm bringing these up in the context of just being flimsy. These are not real reasons why you impeach Supreme Court justices. So we all, at that morning, we stormed the Capitol building. I was in the hall, and we were really out there for Chippo, and he was represented by Councilor Cephas Mabandi, one of the most prominent lawyers in Liberian history. Peace be unto his ashes. And so 73 years later, Chippo is impeached for something very flimsy. It didn't stop there. In the year 2019, we saw that Cabinet Jane was impeached because of his views about the election. Whatever he did as an associate justice of the Supreme Court was held against him when George Weah won the election of 2017 and Cabinet Janet was impeached. So I'm saying that all of this to say that if these things are not arrested, if they're not stopped, then we're going to see this again and again and again. So we as a people have a responsibility to do something about this. And I think that's where this discussion is very, very important.
Thank you. And before I go to Councillor Jayweh, let me go to Mr. Kunney here. Mr. Kunney, tell me how important is the justice system? I know we have 3 branches of government. Most of the time we hear about the executive. We also hear about the legislators because, they are the one making laws and their salaries. But how important is this piece we call justice?
That is, I mean, justice is one of the most crucial thing for any society. I mean, the idea that people should be treated fairly, or that people in a society see themselves as being treated fairly, or that the system is operated in a fair and equitable manner for everyone. When it comes to the issue of justice, especially the criminal justice aspect, my observation over time is that when we talk about justice issues in Liberia, historically, what we focus on are the rights of political players, political actors. Those are the things that claim our immediate attention. But one of the tragedy that has been associated with the criminal justice system that I've pointed out over time is this whole idea of mass incarceration of people for pre-trial purposes, people that are detained waiting trial. That is something that has been constant in our criminal justice system over the years. These people, they receive no attention because they are ordinary people. They are ordinary people walking the street that somebody either carried to the police, or that ordinary people that have been arrested. The courts in Liberia also got the power to arrest. The magistrate can issue writ of arrest. All of these things. So you have this huge population of people in detention waiting trial. A pre-trial detention, according to our law, the counselor is here, is supposed to be 48 hours. Within 48 hours, when someone is arrested for a crime, that person should be presented before a court of competent jurisdiction. But this pre-trial detention population, you got people waiting for trial, people that have been arrested, not convicted, that are languishing behind bars for even 2 years, sometimes 4 years on pre-trial. But nobody pick up, or I shouldn't say nobody, the issue of these victims. I'll call them victims. These people that have been abused by our criminal justice system, it is not highlighted as in a case, for example, if you had a prominent political figure that was arrested by the same system. And that is the tragedy of our criminal justice system that nobody talks about. It always has to be the big man, got to be the arrest of Harry Toba, the arrest of Dr. Sawyer, the arrest of Jefferson Koji, the arrest of Moba Molu. These are the people that we pay attention to. But who speak for the ordinary people that are languishing throughout the country? If you read any of the human rights report on Liberia, they will speak to this issue of pre-trial detention that is against the rights of Liberia. Even the opening of the Supreme Court, the Chief Justice, even people of the National Bar Association, they made mention of these things.
Thank you.
But from time to time, so for me, if we talk about justice in Liberia, this is one area where there is a clear violation of the rights of Liberians. You can't keep somebody on suspicion of something or somebody waiting for trial for 2 years, for 6 months, for 1 year. And I think that's one of the areas we need to focus on. I know there will be the temptation for us to go to the politics of justice,
We'll go there, Mr.
That
Kunney.
is easy.
We'll go there. Let me go to the councillor. Why? You don't want us to go to the politics of it? We'll go there.
No, I mean, the politics is good. What I'm saying, I mean, let somebody talk about the ordinary people because they are human beings too.
Thank you. Councillor, and Councillor, I want to ask you the sequence of events in the criminal justice system. I want you to explain that so that we see, because my follow-up will be based on the sequence. Where do we have the most problems? So walk me through the sequence of events in the criminal justice system.
Let me first go back. I wanted to address something that Carl said.
Okay.
I always say to people that Liberia is not a country without good laws. Liberia is not a country with very fine judges, some fine lawyers. The issue is, how are those persons or individuals, practitioners, lawyers, judges are interpreting, ensuring how the law is equally applied to people. So the question is not knowledge. The question is how do people, it's a selective. If it's a selective system, then the problem is not more of education, the problem is more of how selected people are in addressing certain issues. Now, let me go quickly to the criminal justice system. As Mr. Kunney said, we have the police, the law enforcement aspect. The matter could start there. A charge sheet could be written and taken over to the magistrate court, any of our magistrate court in the city of Monrovia is there where it started. Then a writ of arrest could be issued by the magistrate. And I said that all magistrates in Liberia, under our law, have the authority to issue writ of arrest for any crime. They do not have the jurisdiction or the authority to prosecute all crimes. So they have limitations as to what crimes a magistrate or magistrates can prosecute. So when a complaint, if a matter starts with let's go to where the matter starts with a charge sheet from the police on to the magistrate. When there exists something referred to as the probability of cause, that is, there is a strong belief that a crime was committed, the magistrate will go ahead and issue the writ on the allegation that were brought. If a grand jury is sitting, because the crime is a crime that the magistrate has limited jurisdiction to hear, the matter will be filed over to Criminal Code A. So in Liberia, we have Criminal Code A, B, C, D, E. We don't have F yet. So A is dealing with all of the murder cases and treason cases, high crimes, and so forth. B dealing with aggravated assault and other crimes lower than murder and so forth. And then the Criminal Code B also would decide immigration issue. C dealing clearly with
corruption
cases, aggravated assault, not aggravated assault, criminal misappropriation of trusted property, economic sabotage. All of these financial and other crimes would be dealing with them. Then Code D dealing with armed robbery, anything surrounding armed robbery, whether it's regular, it's done by arm, it's done by knife, it's done by rear gun, and so forth. Code D dealing with that. So, and then E dealing with all of the rape, sexual assault cases, specifically they are tailored. All of the cases that had to do with sexual assault will go before Criminal Code E. Now, once a writ is issued, a defendant is arrested and brought to court. The court takes jurisdiction. That court that went ahead and arrest that defendant will have jurisdiction to hear the case, provided it is not a magistrate with limited jurisdiction. After an indictment is issued, I heard Mr. Kunney saying that ordinary people being kept in prison. That's true. My last time in Liberia, I was there like for 6 months. The central prison that is constructed to house 300 detainees or prisoners had, at the time when I was there, were like 2,500 of them, Liberians, and mostly ordinary. In fact, almost 100%, everyone in that place will be an ordinary Liberian, not a lawyer like Vanya Sherman, not a lawyer like Frederick Jayweh, not a lawyer, not a senator, not even the current, the recent rate of arrest indictment that were issued against the National Election Commission. So people who consider almost as we look to as the elite group of people, they actually don't see what behind the fence for central prison look like. And it could go on and on. So the fact that the justice system, a defendant is brought to court and he's tried, the presumption is that the court may not address his right the way it should be addressed. The court has no obligation to address people's right. The lawyers that are representing a client has the responsibility to propound what the rights of a client or clients will be as the court takes judicial notice as to how the matter proceed. So I also tell people that under the criminal justice system, or the court does not go out to look for cases. The criminal cases are brought to court by the Ministry of Justice or the county attorney or by the police and prosecution staff there.
Thank you. So what I want us to look at now, and call, you can come in. So we see that someone is caught committing the crime or something happened. There's arrest. They book the person. Take the person to court. There's a bill or bond and all these different things, arraignment, plea, and all the 9 yards. Let's talk about where we think the issues lies. Mr. Kunney already started by saying, the pre-trial. What are the issues in our criminal justice system? Carl, you should know one or two things about this.
Right. I'm a little taken aback by the statement that the courts have no obligation to, I'm not sure what the word was that was used. I don't know if it's protect people's rights or to ensure people's rights. I completely disagree. When you become a judge, you take an oath. And part of that oath of office has to do with you respecting the Constitution, the laws which involve people's rights. The court is absolutely under obligation to observe the rights of citizens. And yes, lawyers are there also to fight for their clients. Maybe you misspoke. Maybe you meant that the courts are not there to defend clients, but they are absolutely there. They have to respect people's legal, civil rights under our laws. So some of the problem I think that I observed when I was there is, and another statement that was made was about education not being the issue. I completely disagree. I think that we do have great laws. Many of the laws that are on the books are wonderful, but I also understand that there are some limitations of those people who are the gatekeepers, per se. And some of those limitations have to do with their education, their background. Let us be honest here. Arthur Grimes is not what it used to be. The resources that were once available to the institution, the ranking of the institution on a global scale in the 1950s, 60s, 70s is not where it is today. We're issuing, LBs, which is fine, right? So you get a bachelor's in law and you have to, apprentice for some time as an attorney before you become admitted to the bar. Beautiful. The question is, are these people that are graduating, are all of them even sitting in class? I can give you a personal experience that I had with Arthur Grimes School of Law. I think I will just hold that for a little bit, but the idea that, you know, we're going to dismiss the incompetence in the you know, amongst legal professionals in Liberia, the incompetence among judges, the failure to really understand the laws that they're supposed to be interpreting is a huge problem. You don't understand something, you cannot administer justice properly. And to say that it's not about education, some of this, of course, is intentional, some of it is corruption, but a lot of it, from my observation in my discussions with lawyers in Liberia, a lot of it is just, they just don't know better. They don't have the skills that are necessary, and something needs to be done, because you cannot have justice in a country where everyone from the lawmakers to the lawyers and to the judges, there's a huge percentage of those people that are not properly prepared to do what they're being asked to do, tasked to do, right? And so you have, we can sit all, you know, it's not a nice thing to say, I agree, but it's the truth. And we cannot pretend that it is not the truth. We've observed this.
So, called one of the issues you find with the justice system is the education.
Absolutely.
Jayweh,
you know,
Jayweh, please respond quickly before I go to Mr. Sherif.
I don't understand when you, first thing I said that the judges are not responsible to protect your rights. What do I mean? Your rights are stated under our laws. So the advocacy as to how your rights are protected is protected by the law. All the judge would do will enforce the law as is or as properly interpreted and applied. A judge does not go out to begin to say, oh, I will protect this defendant right now. No, what the law is that governs a particular case is what the judge will use to apply to protect the right of the defendant. The judge will not go outside of the law to be able to protect people. But
so that clarification is necessary. Right.
It is the responsibility of the lawyer who represents a client.
I agree.
Go ahead and propound the law as it is. In fact, that's why you are allowed to write your legal brief. You will say whatever thing you wish to say in that brief. The other thing I don't understand when she said that Louis Allegran is not as it is, and she
as it was
by mistake saying, or she knows someone who basically might not have sat in class, and they were admitted to the bar. I will only suggest the only way you can know that the court is not working is that when you are a lawyer and you are practicing on a daily basis before the court, you can be able to point out what the court, what are the judges you are appearing before actually understand the law. Is the judge capable enough to interpret the civil law and apply it? That's another question. Most of our judges are good. The judges on the Supreme Court are good. The lower court judges are also guys who are learned in the law, women and men who are learned in the law. If you don't practice law, and you don't, I bring you one example. One example is in Grand Juda County, there's a murder trial that was going on there. Judge Anthony Wallow was sitting in Grand Juda County as a trial judge and hearing this murder case. And a motion to dismiss for lack of evidence was made by the defendant. Judge Wallow granted the motion and discharged the defendant. The prosecution were in court. They accepted to the dismissal of the indictment and the writ of arrest and decided that they would announce appeal to the Supreme Court. Why that matter was before the Supreme Court, non-lawyers. I listen to, I follow Spoon Talk. Group of panelists on that Spoon Talk was saying, oh, Judge Wallow has taken bribe. But Judge Wallow outlined his reason for granting the motion to dismiss. One of the things Judge Wallow said was that the indictment that brought the defendant to court was not an indictment that was strong enough to prosecute the defendant, even though it was a murder trial. The public began to say that judge is corrupt. because he dismissed a murder trial, not because he dismissed it because he did not respect the defendant's right, but because he dismissed a case where somebody was killed. What if the judge makes a decision? The lower court judges, once they rule, you disagree as a lawyer, you have the right to proceed to either a justice in chambers or you proceed to the Supreme Court to contest what a lower court judge has said.
Yeah.
So lack of understanding by the public to come out and say, oh, why did the judge grant bail in a murder trial? Yeah, there's a law that protects the judge to do that. The law says where proof is not evident and presumption is not great, the judge can decide to grant the defendant to a bail, even though it's a felony.
Thank you,
These are technical things that it need to be understood. That's why I say the responsibility for the public to be educated, it will be on the lawyers, particularly lawyers who say they're advocates. They're supposed to be able to explain why did the judge proceed the way he proceeded.
Thank you. Let me go to Mr. Sherif now on the issues that we have with the criminal justice system, especially. Mr. Sherif, what do you find?
Well, one of the things collectively with the Liberian justice system, keep in mind what we've begun talking about right now are the statutory laws, but keep in mind it's also customary laws. I remember when I was growing up, in traditional people have their own system of justice, which was accepted at the time. So one of the things that I found troubling is that in addition to what Cole already mentioned about education or the lack of education, is political pressure from the executive, especially. So you have court officials, judges cave into political pressure from the executive branch of government. That is very disturbing. That is something that have the propensity of destabilizing the Liberian democracy. I remember a specific case where Mary Broad was taken to court by a young man that she assaulted and verbally berated. And this young man went to court. He was called. She called him a mandingo. She called him a mandingo dog, and assaulted and ordered people to assault him. And he was verbally attacked on the orders of Mary Broad. Mary Broad so the defendant went to court to seek legal redress, and Mary Broad at the appointed time refused to go to court. Of course, she's very notorious for that. We also what happened recently when she was summoned by the legislature, and she made a whole circus of that. So she refused to go to court. So the next thing that the defendant found was that someone from the Ministry of Justice called down to the Temple of Justice, say, do not go forward with that case. That we don't have evidence. Do not go forward. And it was dismissed. After Mary Broad tried to bribe this young man, and he said he was going to go to court. Okay, I'm aware of this because they kept me in. I kept in touch with them. They kept me informed of what was going on, and I advised them to go to court. I advised them not to be violent. Go to court. They went to court to seek legal redress, and this is what they got from the court system. So the Liberian judiciary, the system, is a joke right now. At this time, we have, and I know we're probably going to get to that at some point. We have what has been done to someone who won legitimately a Senate seat from Lofa County. This man cannot take his seat because of political pressure from the executive branch of government. So these people don't even know. They don't
Mr.
even
Sherif?
know their rights. So
Mr. Sherif, let me interject because the ones that involve political pressure from above, I would say that's a very small percentage of the cases, right? So if we look at the judicial or the justice system as a whole, do you think the one that has to do with pressure, political pressure, do you think that's in the majority?
Well, I don't want to say it's in the majority or in the minority, in the absence of hard evidence, but it seems to it's certainly looked that way, but I cannot definitively conclude because I don't have, the evidence to put together to compare that to, say corruption or just the lack of knowledge, for example. But it would seem that way. It would seem that the president of the Republic of Liberia, whoever the president is, tend to get away with whatever they want to do with the judiciary. So it's almost like the judiciary is in the pocket of the president. So the judiciary is subservient to the president. So one has to wonder, do these guys really know their rights? Do they know what they're doing?
Exactly.
They don't know what they're doing. It doesn't look like. Chair Chipo stood up for something. When he stood up for what he believed in, and he was absolutely correct, he took the fall for it. But you know what? History is going to remember the Chair Chipos of this world.
Right.
Okay?
And
not the current Chief Justice.
Mr.
The
Kunney.
current Chief Justice is in the pocket of George Weah, and history is going to remember him differently. History is going to remember him as a failure. History is going to remember him as a corrupt and inept, head of the Liberian judiciary. And this is how history is going to remember him. And that's a bad way to be remembered.
Mr. Sherif, do you have any evidence of that?
Where's your evidence?
Where is my evidence? Where is your evidence that this is not the case? How was Kabina Janet? Tell me, because I know you was on the other side of I believe the administration. Where is your evidence that when Kabina Janet was impeached, yes, when Kabina Janet was impeached, that this was not an intrusion by the executive? You have people, you have George Weah's errand boys in the legislature saying that this is what we're going to do, and we're going to impeach him. He is going to be impeached. He's done. So when the impeachment is over, the guys don't even know why he was impeached. So you ask them, they don't know why he's impeached. So there is insurmountable evidence that George Weah, because of George Weah, Kabina Janet was impeached. There is evidence that because of political pressure from the executive, that now Brownie Samukai, the senator, the legitimate senator who was elected, cannot take his seat. These are the things. But when we begin to discuss these things, paid agents of the status quo, bootlickers of the status quo, job seekers, failed activists, try to challenge our conclusions. And this is unacceptable. Let's call it for what it is. The reason why we have these problems is because people talk about, well, where is your evidence? Oh, he's doing his best. Oh, this is not the case. This is exactly the case.
Thank you. Mr. Kunney, let's look at the impact. What has the impact been? And let me set the stage, because every time, for instance, we have elections and people feel aggrieved and they go to court and they think they cannot find justice, well, sometimes they pick up arms. So in Liberia, historically and even now, what has the impact be when there is a miscarriage of justice, when people do not believe the justice system? I was reading something before the show, and it says that Liberians do not even trust the justice system. What is the impact if people have no faith in the justice system because they feel their rights are not protected?
In a democracy, it is citizens' obligation to change their society to what they want it to be. Mm-hmm. It was the other day on this show that I indicated to you that I have observed a lot of what I call the exercise of privileges without responsibility. There are people that want to be citizens or that are citizens that want to exercise the privileges of citizenship, but don't want to exercise the responsibility of citizenship. If you are not satisfied with a judicial decision, our responsibility as citizens is to work towards the reform of the system. The means are there. The laws are there. You know? So the whole idea that because we are unhappy with a judicial decision, so we should take extrajudicial means to correct it. You don't have a monopoly over extrajudicial means. No one person has a monopoly over that. We have a system that is working.
My question was not a justification, but as I'm saying, we've seen over time that's what happens. So what I'm not
I say it is our obligation. We have a democracy. It's our obligation to work towards a perfect system.
Thank you.
By electing people that respect our values. If someone is in office today that don't respect the law, it is our responsibility as citizens to change those that we've elected. The means, the procedures, everything is there to do that. But to go outside the law to correct what you perceive to be your righteous interpretation of the law is no solution, because no one has a monopoly over that.
So you see that has not a problem in the justice system. You see that has a perception issue. What you perceive has been wrong.
Yeah, because look, in the adjudicatory process, there will always be winners and there will be losers. We all live it here. You go to the U.S. Supreme Court, cases are decided. Everyone is never satisfied. But what you see activists do is to go out there to advocate, to call for change in leadership, to change representatives, to change senators. The fact that citizens abdicate their responsibility in that regard, and they think that extrajudicial means to resolve these issues are the best way to do that, denigrating our traditional elders to confront law enforcement constituted authority is the way to do that. That's crazy. It is crazy.
Thank you.
No, don't take me now. Yeah. Hold on. I got a point to make.
I mean, I have the right to thank you, Mr. Kunney.
Yeah, no, okay, but I know why you're thanking me. Your thank you is usually to shut me down when I'm about. I know I'm being on this panel for a long time. I know what your thank you means. We are here to discuss a professional topic, an issue that affects all Liberians. You know, this rush to politicize everything in Liberia is one of the tragedies of our times. We're talking about justice that affects everybody. You bring in the impeachment of Cabinet Janet, you say it's politics. But my brother, let me tell you.
Oh my God, Mr. Kunney, justice is political.
Impeachment is
political.
Impeachment, I'm agreeing with impeachment is a political process. So you can't talk about impeachment and talk about politics interfering with impeachment.
It is a legal process.
It is a political process.
It is a legal process.
No, it is not legal. This is why it's not in the court. It is not legal. It is not a legal process. This is why it is not.
Maybe you don't know what legal means.
Hold on. Let me
It is a process.
The fact of the matter is it's a political process. This is why the trial is held in the legislature, so that those who take that vote can bear the accountability of that vote. So to cry that Cabinet got impeached is politics, not politics. But what penalty did the senators, the opposition senators that actually took the vote to remove him from office, what penalty did they pay?
When is Brownie Samuka going to take his seat? Did you ask the president of the
Republic
of Liberia? When is Brownie Samuka going to take his seat? I'm interested in that.
Thank you.
Hey, man, go ask the Supreme Court.
You're giving this man too much time, man.
Thank you, Mr. Kunney. Let me go to Councillor Jayweh.
Go ask the Supreme Court. You have a Supreme Court. Either you have a Supreme Court or you don't.
When is Brownie Samuka taking his seat? That's all I want to know.
Exactly.
The weaponizing of the law. This is where those in power use the law as an instrument of attack. So in the case of critics of the government, they can be silenced when they start to investigate them for over and over. Even here in the US, sometimes they use the IRS. So they are weaponizing the law. I know Mr. Kunney is saying, well, people who perceive that they are not being served justice can seek other means. But when justice or the law has been weaponized, there's just not much room. What's your take?
I don't know what you mean. The law is
always a room in a democracy.
I do not understand. Neither do I know what you mean when the law is weaponized.
You use it as an instrument of attack. Let's say Dennis Jai is critical of the government, so you want to investigate how I got my license to operate focus on library in Monrovia. From there, you want to see the land I have in Dudlok and whether I have the deed. So you start to use legal means, but that's really
have a deed.
You better have the deed. You better have the license.
I agree.
So if you don't have, let me address two things.
Yeah, so that's what you said. You wanted me to explain weaponized because
I understand what you mean. But
investigation upon investigation just to silence their critics.
I understand what you mean. What I was saying was that I don't believe so.
Okay.
The two instances mentioned by Mr. Sherif. One is the Cabinet General situation. The other is why is Brandon Samakai not yet sitting? I don't work for the government. I never worked for the government. I got no interest in working for them. The first thing that occurred in the situation of the impeachment of Mr. Justice Janet, the impeachment of a judge or of a government official is a political process. The indictment drawn or the charges drawn in the House of Representatives is a political action taken by the House of Representatives. When the indictment or charges are sent over to the Senate, it is not the justice or the chief justice who sat on the case is responsible for the conviction of impeachment or not. The Senate will vote. I don't know what is funny, and I hope you'll be civil.
I will say so. I'll explain what's funny when you're done.
Okay. Hold on. Go ahead, Call. Please don't interrupt. Go ahead, Councillor Jayweh.
So
but that has never been an issue on this show. Somebody can laugh. There's no crime in laughing.
Mr. Sherif, let's give.
What is going on here today? I don't understand.
You know what's going on is that
hold on, Call. Let's give Councillor Jayweh a chance to complete. Go ahead, Councillor Jayweh.
So to impeach a justice, the process starts with the House of Representatives. Once the charges are drawn, they are forwarded on to the Senate. Under our law, and I wrote about it, under our law, the Chief Justice is the one, whether he likes it or not, he's the one who sits on that trial as the law officer. All he passes on would be the legal issues that are raised during that impeachment trial. The conviction and the removal of Mr. Justice Janet was done by the legislature. Chief Justice Powell was compelled to sit as a Chief Justice.
Councillor what's the point? Are you saying that this was a free, fair, and transparent process?
That's what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you.
Okay.
I'm saying to you the idea of accusing Justice Powell because he sat on that trial, and the trial ended with Mr. Justice Janet being impeached is like not understanding what the law is and what the process is at all.
All right.
What happened before the legislature?
I don't want us to relitigate this case of Cabinet Janet. It was just used in.
No. He spoke very highly on it. It was not an example. He spoke very highly on it. He went further to say that Chief Justice Kokbo.
He spoke about it. He can't
go in no evidence to say that.
We're going to relitigate it.
No, I don't want us to take
the other thing I wish that
I don't want us to take the show in that direction.
So I'm saying to you, under our law, a Chief Justice, when an impeachment process is before the Senate, It is the Chief Justice who sits as the law officer. He has no alternative. Unless he resigns, if he remains as Chief Justice, he must sit as the law officers and pass on the legal issues. That's what Mr. Justice Kokwa did. The voting part, getting Mr. Justice General off the bench, was done by the Senate.
All right.
They voted. So let's go to the next thing with not Cabinet General, with Brandon Samaka. Brandon Samaka case has to be understood by people.
Councillor, please be brief on that one because I want to move on.
Brandon Samaka was taken to court and charged for theft of property and economic sabotage. Brandon Samaka was convicted of the crime in the lower court. Brandon Samaka was represented by fine lawyers. Justice Wright, Michael Wright was one of the lawyers who represented Brandon Samaka. The matter trial to the Supreme Court, Brandon Samaka lost. The Minister of Justice, at the time he has won the election, before he could be certificated to sit, the Minister of Justice chose to go to the Supreme Court and say Brandon Samaka is legally disabled. That's what the law is. He's legally disabled in that he committed a crime and he was convicted of the crime. So the matter is before the Supreme Court on that note because the both Samaka lawyer as well as the lawyer representing the Republic of Liberia have filed bill of information. What is there difficult to understand?
Councillor Jayweh, what are some of the issues with the Liberian justice system?
There are issues of judges being corrupt. There are issues of lawyers being incompetent. There are issues of delay in the trial process. Some judges have been accused of being corrupt. Some lawyers have been accused of being representing a client in a very poor manner. So, and there are issues of the executive branch of government influencing very small amount of cases in a courtroom. The rest of the cases that may occur in a courtroom that people will lose would be cases that they just lost. The evidence is not there for you to win, and so you lost. Or that you travel, as far as you travel from the lower court onto the Supreme Court, the decisions affirm and reaffirm, you have lost. Explain that. Instead of saying, oh, you know, the judges are not educated. Where did you come from with that? Instead of saying the lawyers are incompetent, which law case you were in that went on to the Supreme Court that ended? What is the example of cases do you have? Don't tell me Samaka case. Samaka was convicted as a criminal.
Thank you. Thank you. And Call, I want you to respond to that, but let us not go too much in the Samaka and Brandon Samaka and Kabina Jana cases. So
I will say this. You cannot say an election was free and fair and then turn around and say, yes, the election was free and fair. The citizens had a right to elect this person, and then turn around and say, oh, after he was elected, we have convicted him. At that point, it is now what you're supposed to do is if the legislature chooses is to impeach him. You can't, the courts, under no constitutional law can the courts reverse an election that was free and fair, that they themselves declared free and fair. So if there was an issue with the election itself being free and fair, then they would be correct. But they can't on one hand say the election is free and fair, and the citizens, the powerful citizens of the Republic have selected this person in a free and fair process, but we are going to reverse an election because we convicted this person. That is not in their power to do so.
Can I come in?
No, you cannot. That is not in their power.
You are not
That is not in their power.
You are not Dennis. The court is not even dealing with
No,
it.
this is not. Dennis, I mean, this is not how.
So you cannot reverse something that's already been declared free and
It's
fair.
not even before the court.
So no, they declared that the election was free and fair. They allowed him to run for office. They allowed the man to run for office. They cleared him to run. The citizens voted for him. That is a clear constitutional process that was correct, and they agreed that it was correct. You cannot then go back and revoke votes. The court has no such authority. This is a republic. We are a country of laws. And again, to get back to this issue of education, this isn't something that would even be a question in the United States or places where people actually understand what they're doing or are not politically motivated to pretend not to understand what they're doing, right? So political motivation skews your ability to reason. You cannot say an election was free and fair and then turn around and say, we're going to revoke the citizens' votes because this person's been convicted. At that point, that person needs to be impeached. It is not up to the courts to impeach him. They can convict him. They can say they're going to jail him. They can do a lot of things, but they cannot reverse the election once they've declared that it was free and fair. This isn't something that should even be a question. So I'll leave the Samakai thing because he told me to. So the issue here is impeachment is a legal process. It is a legal process because it is laid out in the highest law of the land, which is the Constitution. Saying that the impeachment process is political diminishes the fact that it is an act of law. It is an act of enforcing laws. There is a legal process in which you do this. There are certain offenses that are impeachable. This is laid out in the Constitution. Who does the impeachment? This is all of it is legal. Are people politically motivated? And do they use legal processes to push their political agendas? Yes, they do. And this is what Dennis was talking about with weaponized laws or weaponized legal systems. When you have a president and you have judges and you have lawyers or whoever else or citizens are willing to turn a blind eye to something because they don't like someone, this is what happens. You have a complete breakdown in checks and balances. There is no reason to not allow the man to take his seat. There is cause to start impeachment proceedings against him if he is convicted.
Thank you, Carl. Please end with what are the issues in our justice system?
I can give you some right now.
I would say this. What my observation has been is because there are many people who are politically motivated who lack ethics. Ethics is part of legal education, right? You're supposed to have ethics because Arthur Grimes, for example, I don't even know if they're recognized in the region anymore, as far as being a law school that is worthy of putting out decent lawyers. We just are blessed to have so many geniuses that are able to self-study and apprentice under people and be able to actually function. But I don't even know if the school is equipped with what it needs to produce the quality of lawyer. Right, so that might be a different issue. Now, one last point, Dennis. This is not intended to offend anyone, but we do need to understand that we have to follow the law. We cannot follow our gut instincts. We cannot follow our president. George Weah himself takes an oath to the Constitution. He doesn't take an oath to you and I. He does not take an oath to anything but the Constitution. When you are a lawyer, when you are a public servant, you take an oath to laws, not men. And we have to be focused on that.
Thank you. Mr. Kunney, you say you want to come up with some of the issues you see?
Yeah. He already had all these litany of issues that he laid out there. So let me just say this. Let me just say this.
You arrested my flow.
Let me just say this.
So
every time,
Mr. Sherif, hold on. I asked Kunney. Let me give a few issues. Mr. Kunney, I forgot that you spoke before. So just 1 minute, list some of the issues.
Yeah, let me. One of the issues I would list is let me talk about education. It's education, but it is in another sense, not in the sense that our law school is now producing the kind of lawyers. The education piece is that people are not even aware as to what the legal processes, the procedures are. Many people don't even know law enforcement procedures. They don't know even the elementary procedures in court proceeding. So they go out on a tangent and base their own assumption on what they believe things should be. So in a case of, let's say, a high-profile case, the police is conducting an investigation. People not understanding what police procedures, what the laws of evidence are, what the investigative process is, rush to their own conclusions and inflame the minds of the public against the investigation. That's one of the problems, and that's lack of education. Because if you are aware as to how these things are done, then your sentiments and your emotions, everything will be measured. But if you're not educated to those policies and those procedures as to what even constitute a probable cause for arrest, what constitute a probable cause for the police to even approach you, then you inflame every situation. So I agree on the issue of education, but in another sense, not in the sense that our law school is now producing the graduates and other things.
Thank you. Mr. Sherif, let's talk
What
issues
I was going
here.
to say is that every time we have had opportunity as a nation to do the right thing, to right the wrongs of the past, we've gone the other way. You know, in 1920, when the League of Inquiry Investigation indicted President Charles D.B. King and Vice President Allen Yancey was impeached, and President King resigned. So today you have a school that's named in honor of Charles D.B. King. Okay, so nothing was done or there was no sort of look back by us as a nation to revisit the things that were done, the ills that were done under that administration. So today you have Liberian descent in Fernando Po, in Equatorial Guinea, who is out there investigating these things. Okay, so around the same year was when Firestone signed the 100-year concession agreement. These are wrongs that should have been corrected. They've never been corrected. Fast forward to present day, you have a so-called indigenous president who is supposed to correct some of the wrongs. You know, I hear a lot about all these nationalists or pseudo-nationalists going around talking about, you know, oh, this is our country. You know, the people that suppress us, you know, this is our time. This is our country. My papa's land. So now you have the so-called indigenous in office. They are dominating everywhere. So there's no more excuses with all of this stuff. You have a so-called indigenous president. You have the legislature that's dominated by these indigenous nationalists. You have the judiciary that's in the hand of these indigenous nationalists.
Mr. Sherif, is that an issue with the justice system?
Yes, Dennis, it's an issue with the justice system. Dennis, you do not circumscribe to just one little part.
Right,
you don't look at just the court.
Is it because people are indigenous? Dennis, that's why the justice system is where it is?
Dennis, you don't just look at the court, the palaces of correction, our correctional houses, our police. You don't just look at that. There is a whole host of issues. You know what? I will tell you one thing. Justice, right, should be the fulcrum on which the nation rests. If you need a stable democracy, justice is the fulcrum. Justice is that foundation. Right now, we don't have that. We don't have that solid foundation. So I'm hoping that this discussion is moving in the direction of putting us on recommendations where hopefully the leadership is listening. Hopefully some policymakers are listening so that there can be that solid foundation. What we're saying here, those of us that are on the right side of this, what we're saying is that the foundation is very shaky. It's a shaky foundation. And so that needs to be corrected. But the moment you try to make such recommendations, again, you have opportunists who go around questioning everything that you say, everything that you try to propound. As long as we have that Liberia is not going to advance as a nation, right? As a strong democratic nation. Dennis, how many times have you heard, oh, our fledgling democracy? This is our fledgling democracy. You're not supposed to be talking about fledgling democracy right now. You're supposed to be talking about flourishing democracy. Why are you still talking about fledgling democracy at this time in 2022, as we stand on the eve, at this time in 2021, as we stand on the eve of 2022? So, and part of the reason why we continue to talk about the fledgling democracy is because our legal foundation is shaky. Our legal foundation, our judicial system is dominated by the executive, whether they know it or not, whether some of the panelists here admit it or not. They know it, okay? These guys are educated. Some of them are. They know it, okay? So they know exactly what's going on, and they themselves are playing politics with this. They themselves act like they are in the pocket of the regime in Monrovia. And to me, that is unacceptable. We come here as a patriot, regardless of which side of the fence you sit on. We come here as a patriot. We come here as independent-minded people and talking about what needs to happen, what the nation needs to do. I'm not in this particular situation. I'm not talking as a supporter or opponent of George Weah. I'm just saying, do the right thing. And when you do the right thing, you're going to liberate a country from the ills, from the ills, from poverty, from disease, okay? Thank you, Mr. Sherif. Bad administration. And finally, Dennis, when we salute, when we salute our flag, we salute the nation that flag symbolizes, and we also say indivisible and justice for all. So that justice is lacking in Liberia at this time.
Thank you. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to read comments and pick calls. Councillor Jayweh, my first question to you after the break is, do Liberians trust the justice system? If yes, why or why not? And we're going to take a short break and be right back.
At Focus on Liberia, we discuss everything Liberia, from education to politics, arts and culture, entertainment, agriculture, history, religion, family, and technology. Focus on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Welcome back to Focus on Liberia. This is Tough Talking Thursday, and we are discussing the Liberian justice system. Councillor Jayweh, hold on 1 minute. We have an overseas caller, even though his data is not harmonized. So let's take this overseas caller from Australia. That's Desmond Tutu Finley. And by the way, Bishop Desmond Tutu has just passed. Our hearts go out to the family. And we want to remember, because Desmond Tutu Finley remind me of Bishop Desmond. Desmond, welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And Cole made a good post for Bishop Tutu on Facebook that I saw. It was pretty impressive. Thank you, Cole. But there's several points I want to make just sharing this discussion going on here. The first thing I want to correct, I want not correct, but I want the public to understand is nobody here is questioning as it relates to Brownie Samukai whether the election was free or whether it was fair. That's not the question before the court. That's one thing. So that's a misnomer. That's misinformation from Cole, but I think Cole knows that. But the misinformation is there. The second part here, again, when it comes to Mr. Sherif is when he was asked a question, what's his evidence to say that X is happening? Mr. Sherif literally said, what's the evidence to show that it's not happening? Mr. Sherif is asking somebody that he accused to produce evidence to vindicate themselves. In Mr. Sherif's ideal court, where you would live as a Liberian person would be, I will accuse you, then you will come and prove to me where you're right or where you're wrong, as opposed to him presenting evidence to prove somebody's being right or wrong. Mr. Sherif walked around with a sense of morality that he has. He said, you're not questioning nobody. He's the only person saluting the Liberian flag and George Weah, henchman, or wherever the case is, but he's the only person with a sense of morality here. Mr. Sherif, well, unbeknownst to you, you're wrong. You don't bear a certain sense of morality just because you sit on Focus on Africa. No, you don't. You don't have the facts in your pocket You're not going to spew in the windows to call it facts today. The fact of the matter remains, Brownie Samaka is a convicted felon. The Justice Department has asked the Supreme Court to say, can he be said as a convicted felon? When that ruling comes out, we will know.
Okay.
Brownie Samaka self said on Spoon TV, one, I also finished it. Brownie said on Spoon TV, number one, I don't agree with the ruling of the court, but the court ruling is final, and I have to accept it. That's what Brownie said, verbatim, out of his own mouth. Yeah, Mr. Sherif is saying, no, Brownie should not get the court ruling, we should listen to culture devil. Because we have traditions. What's wrong with this man?
Are you part of the CDC?
What's really wrong with this man?
Thank you.
Listen off there.
Yeah, thank you.
Are you in the CDC, Kim?
Mr. Sherif, your response.
Yeah, so these are paid agents of the status quo. That's all I can say. And so I said it over and over and again. And that's why I went back into history and lay out some of the things. It didn't just start now with George Weah. I went back to 1914. I went to 1987 and what happened to Justice Cheaper in 1987. So it's very similar to what's going on now. But every time you talk about George Weah, paid agents, failed activists, and bootlickers of this status quo.
Mr. Sherif, you don't know that. So respond to his comments on the face value.
So, yeah, I do. You know, Dennis, I do know that. You know, you see, this is exactly what they do. This is what they do, and so it is hard to do what I do or some of us do on the show. It's really hard. So when you say the truth, when you are independent and you say the truth, and you know people come at you from all sides without even knowing the facts, without even knowing the issues. But I am going to continue to do what I do because it is the right thing to do.
Councillor Jayweh, my question to you before the break, I said, do Liberians trust the justice system?
I think the question is, do Liberians understand the justice system? There are, and I will answer the other way. There are many quote-unquote educated Liberians who understand nothing about the judicial system, understand nothing of how the justice system works. For example, under our laws, I can't be myself.
Yeah, because I don't know what education you need.
Under our law, I'll tell you, under our law, the prosecution of all criminal cases are done by or is done by the Minister of Justice. So the Minister of Justice has the exclusive power under our law to decide to say if this matter has insufficient evidence. You as a non-lawyer will not understand why the Justice Minister decide to write a court and by way of a motion of a letter and say this matter cannot proceed because I do not see as a Minister of Justice.
Councillor, you are thinking about political cases. I'm saying on the overall, do Liberians trust the justice system?
I'm saying to you, Liberians would trust the justice system if you don't have people running around pretending to understand the justice system and able to explain exactly in the case of why is this particular matter still before the court.
Hey, you're going to big cases right now. My nephew called me and say the police was chasing someone and on a motorbike, and that person, because he's driving from somebody, and that person ran under his car and he died. Mm-hmm. And now the police say, well, this guy who ran under your car is wrong, but because he's dead, so you have to bury him. What education does my nephew need to understand that he's not getting justice? So I'm saying, do Liberians trust the justice system?
You know, when justice is mentioned, people think that is a reactionary action that is needed. Mm-hmm. When a rate of arrest, the situation of your nephew, a rate of arrest, if it's issued against the car driver, for example, justice starts from there. the driver is indicted, justice starts from continue there. The matter is brought to court to be tried. Justice still continue there. If the matter ends with your nephew losing the case, the question is not whether the justice system is not good. It's what happened for your nephew to have lost the case either in the lower court and on to the Supreme Court. So what are the things that went into there, into the prosecution of that particular matter? Mm. So the fact that a matter is lost in a courtroom, it does not mean that the justice is not going on. What we are on the obligation to do is to first admit that you are not a lawyer. Secondly, admit that you do not understand the judicial system. Thirdly, you admit that the prosecutorial process of the country is far from your understanding.
Councillor, anyway, I should be your judge.
So once we are able to educate the people sufficiently, they will have trust in the judiciary. But if you take Kabina Jana case, you say, oh, Kabina Jana was impeached. That's a matter. That's an issue that people will take and run with. Bernie Sambaka won the election. And after the election, look at it. Hear the statement. The Supreme Court revised the election. No, the Supreme Court does not revise election. The Supreme Court is deciding how much money
is on record. Frederick Jayweh is on record for calling Kabina Jana all kinds of names. So you can't be a fair and impartial jury in the issue of Kabina Jana. I don't want to hear this. I don't want to hear this, okay? I don't want to hear this. You cannot be an impartial juror.
Can you list one name that called Kabina Jana?
I don't want to hear this.
All right, thank you. Let me go to.
That's why I said, where's your evidence?
I have a lot of callers here. Let me go to Mr. Kunney quickly. Mr. Kunney, do Liberians trust the justice system? Let's be 1 minute, and then I'll go to call before we bring in.
Why will you give me 1 minute when you give other people 5, 10 minutes?
You're using your minute to conclude.
You give me 1 minute, other people speak for 5, 10 minutes, you can't give 1 minute.
This is the first, Mr. Kunney, you had time. This time we are going through this.
Maybe no justice.
Briefly.
We're talking about justice. You deny me justice on this platform. We're talking about equity. We're talking about fair play. I can't even get it. I can't even get it from the moderator here. So,
but do you have the requisite understanding and the education to understand the legal system?
Yeah, my contribution here is really being Armstrong. But look, say you give me 1 minute, I'm not even going to say anything. The sad thing that is emerging here is, look, there should be a platform where people share their views and their positions, and we should have respect for one another's views. But for Mr. Sherif to continue to refer to people who disagree with him as being in the pockets of regime, and that he is independent, so his view is sacrosanct, is actually degrading.
Don't worry about that, Mr. Sherif.
I think he should desist from that. People in the pay of government, I mean, I respect your view as it relates to issues in Liberia. I want you to equally respect my view and stop throwing these cheap names around. Your views are not important than my views. Let's be respectful here. You don't have any record of receiving pay from the government. So you just play into the gallery, and I think that nonsense should stop.
Okay.
I mean, if the shoes fit.
Okay.
It's not a question of the shoes. It's the question of being respectful of other people's views.
Hold on, Mr. Sherif.
For whom the shoes fit, you must wear it.
When you have,
Mr. Kunney,
make all kind of regular statement, then when people react,
Mr. Kunney,
you have the right to work for a Liberian government.
Mr. Kunney, my question to you is, do Liberians trust the justice system?
It depends. It depends because look, because the way people react to the justice system is, I mean, how cases are decided? If the cases are decided in their favor, they clap. If the cases are not decided in their favor, they denounce the justice system, and that is evident everywhere, even in the United States. When cases are decided for you, you rejoice. If they are decided against you, you denounce the system. So
the reason I ask you, Mr. Kunney, for the ordinary Liberians, forget the big political cases, and you struggle very.
We can't forget the big political cases, because when you introduced this topic, I correctly predicted that you were bringing Brani Samukai.
I did not mention Brani Samukai.
We have reduced this topic that should have actually been about the rights of ordinary Liberians.
So am I going to get my minute to respond to the caller?
Yeah.
And then when we talking, then you say, no, we want to leave the big cases and go to the small cases. We can't go back and forth. If you wanted to keep it to ordinary people, we have kept it that way.
All right, thank you.
It's all connected.
Thank you. Carl, do Liberians trust the justice system? 1 minute.
In general, no. In fact, most Liberians try to handle things the Liberian way in the yard because they don't think they can get justice from the courts. You know, even down to rape cases, people handle them in their yard because they don't think they can get justice from the courts. So the confidence of the public in the justice system is probably zero. And then to respond to the caller with the second half of my 1 minute, if the question, Mr. Finley and everyone else, is not about whether or not the election was free and fair. If the election was free and fair, the next step of removal is impeachment. It is not the court's responsibility to overturn a free and fair election. The point is, if you declare an election as free and fair, once you've done that, you've taken it out of your hands. You can convict him, you can do anything after that. But if he was elected, the courts do not have the power to overturn a free and fair election. This is what the problem is. They do not. The Constitution does not give them that provision. That provision, that check and balance is in the hands of the legislature, not the courts. We have a triune government, 3 branches that are distinct with clear powers. This is what I do for a living, is understand constitutional processes and who does what. And this is what I talk about, why people don't interpret our Constitution correctly. This whole thing is politicized. These big cases are the reasons the small cases are not respected. They look at this, they say, if a man who served for justice minister for 12 years, if a Supreme Court justice cannot get justice, who am I? Who is called to get justice in a country that a Supreme Court justice can be denied a correct and fair process in judging a case?
Thank you. Let's go to the line again. Cisse Goya is being on the line for 12 minutes now. Cisse, quickly, 1 minute.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you for having me. This is a very spirited discussion. Hello to everybody in the studio. I just have a few things. Number one, I wanted to first appreciate Mr. Kunney when you talked about the issue of inequity and you talked about pre-trial detention. I want for the rest of the group, including him, to think about the issue of cash bills. Are those also limiting factors that also crystallize inequity and injustice, right? And then for the especially for the lawyer, I really want to learn. Is his contention tonight that there aren't any instances of miscarriage of justice in the Liberian judicial system? Again, this is just for me trying to learn. I'm trying to wrap my mind around the argument that has been presented. And then the last piece of evidence is that the issue of Councillor Isaac Jackson. Remember the permanent representative to the IMO who was removed from his tenure position, and he sued. And the justice in chamber ruled that all parties should return to a status quo ante. And the government refused to return to status quo ante. As a matter of fact, there was a ruling that required the government to make sure that the family had their passports given to them, and that ruling was refused by the executive. So I want the lawyer on the platform here to really educate me on how that is not a miscarriage of justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me take the last caller. That's Kasali Double. Kasali, you're live.
Thank you very much, Mr. John. Councillor Finley. I was taken aback when you talked about...
That's Councillor Jayweh.
Not Finley.
Councillor Jayweh. Yeah.
Are you talking about legal system, the one that produced someone like Wadei? We're talking about? Or are you talking about a justice system that would say Councillor Wadei admitted in public, on television and everywhere, that he lied, that he was a criminal? Which evidence do you want us to have before we can prosecute someone like Wadei?
Thank you.
Evidence. The legal system in Liberia is just as corrupt as any other thing one can think of. Plain and simple.
Thank you, Kasali. Councillor Jayweh.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of questions coming to you. The first one from Cisse Goya, and now Kasali Double.
Well, again, it goes back to what is the understanding of people when it comes to cases before the court. Is it that the person that you favor did not get a judgment in his favor, therefore you conclude that the judiciary is corrupt? Is that you're saying? In the case of Asset Jackson that he mentioned, the first caller mentioned, Asset Jackson matter traveled from the justice in chambers on to the full bench. Asset Jackson won before the justice in chambers. The matter went to, and just very plain situation. The matter went to the Supreme Court. The justice who presided over the Asset Jackson case, meaning giving back his passport, restoring him to the position, the justice recused herself. Just the word call it recused herself. The four of the other chief justices and the three associate justices reversed the decision of that were made in favor of Asset Jackson, ensuring that Asset Jackson proceeded wrongly. So Asset Jackson, what did he do? Almost like Mr. Sherif. He got all on every newspaper. He began to write that the chief justice is corrupt. He began to say things that he suspended. I'm sure he's suspended, maybe the 1 year is done. But he was suspended for being very loud mouth without an evidence to be able to prove that what you're talking about. So did Asset Jackson get justice? Yeah, he got justice. Asset Jackson won before the justice in chambers. The matter traveled to the Supreme Court. Asset Jackson lost. So was that justice? Yes. The other issue of someone being elected and later on they should be impeached. When he elected, when the matter is before the court and it grows out of your legal disability, the criminal procedure law provides substantive criminal law of Liberia provides that the Ministry of Justice can determine that a legal disability exists as a result of you who have won an election. The Supreme Court, again, that matter went to the justice in chambers.
That's not true.
The justice in chambers sustained the government position. The matter went before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided that, look, there were $1.4 million that you were sued for and you were convicted. Go and pay 50% of the 1 million. There is an argument before the lower court judge whether the 1 million mean the almost 192,000 that Mr. Samuka has paid. Both Samuka said, I finished paying the 50%, so I need to sit. The Minister of Justice said the Supreme Court decision is that you pay 50% of the $1.4 million for which you were sued and you were convicted. Both parties went back to the Supreme Court. When lawyers take matter before the Supreme Court will have to adjudicate the matter. And so justice does not mean that you should win. Justice means that the law should be applied and applied to its fullest, whether you like it or not.
Thank you. Let me put on a few comments here. George Dunbar says Samuka was elected through a free and fair process. A lot of comment. Desmond Finlay, he says Sherif just asked the accused to provide evidence of innocence. Why the accuser just sit there and accuse? This is the kind of Liberia he hopes for. The two contra devil justice in Liberia is not blind, it is not balanced. It is an attempt or pretense to say we have a system that is nothing more than a hierarchical structure amongst the three branches, executive, legislative, and subservient of the executive and the judiciary. A subclass of both branches above. Extrajudicial means are not an option, but have been used as a means through our history. So we cannot ignore it as part of our DNA. What resource do citizens have when the power broker, etc.? Desmond again, impeachment is the process by which a legislative body or other legal constituted tribunal initiates charges against a public official for misconduct. It may be understood as a unique process involving both political and legal elements. Milfi Deco, but it is secret that the judiciary is very corrupt. Is it a secret? The evidence can be found everywhere for those who are willing and want to see them. I am you are blind, something like that. Few more here. Live with two country devils say call is right. It is legal process only available to politicians, void of any statutory punishment. It is only political in the sense it is done in the halls of the legislature. The case and arguments are based on legal jurisprudence.
Exactly.
Samson say impeachment is a quasi-judicial process. Sam Wallow, Dennis, please take hold of this. It has the potential to prevent other serious people from appearing on your platform. They don't come here to be ridiculed. So Joseph Canto, well, this problem is not unique to the judges. Those investigating crime in most cases are careless. First of all, they level charges against the defendant, but they don't compile the evidence to support their charges. We have more and more colors here, which we cannot take all of them. But let me go back to we need to wind down now. So we've seen all the issues that we say are in the justice system. Augusta said there is no justice system in Liberia. Justice is for money persons, and poor persons have no justice. Let's come to solutions. I still have more questions to ask here, but our time is fast spent. What is responsible for the justice system that we've all been talking about here? What do we think, what do we believe is responsible for what we have, and how can we fix it? Let me start with Mr. Kunney.
Well, let me actually speak for the area that I know the most, law enforcement. Traditionally, the issues has always been training. The issue has always been logistics. I mean, these are some practical issues. I was shocked the other day that something that happened more than maybe 2 decades ago, some of those things are still happening. Citizens go to the police, they carry a complaint, and there is still that thing that there is no transportation for the police to accompany the citizens to where the complaint is. Those are issues that from the law enforcement side. If logistics were readily available, I think police cars and police vehicles should be able to accompany citizens to the incidents, to the site of complaints. I see training as an issue. Most police matters actually are straightforward. Is the interpretation of the penal code, the police enforcing the penal code, infraction of the peace, assault and battery, and other things. But there are other areas that actually require real scientific investigation. If you're talking about, if we start going to the areas of homicide, some of these things, some of the crime that are committed in conspiracy, you're talking about economic crime, you talk about some real serious crime, it requires serious investigation. So, I mean, there is a lot more to do in that area. There's been progress made, but we still need to do more in that area. So that the police can function effectively on their end. With regard to the court system, like I said, all of these institutions have their challenges. The court, the docket is crowded, cases are slow sometimes, and we got problem with judges, we got problem with our jury system, The same corruption that is in the society is found in all of our institutions. So you find elements of these things and all of the systems. So these are problems. And for me, again, the issue of the pretrial detention, there are a lot of people in Liberia that are in jail. They are ordinary people, people like your cousin you talk about that we don't talk about on this platform. People that don't animate us, on this platform, that are languaging beyond bars because, somebody, they are waiting trial. That is one of the serious problems that I see in our criminal justice system. Somebody talked about bail. There is another thing that emerged again lately, and some of these things are post-war thing. You want to arrest somebody, but you're waiting for the evening of Friday to arrest the person late Friday, and go put the person to central prison so that the person can sleep there. I mean, these are I don't know what sense it make. I don't know what purpose it serves, because somebody want to prove that I lock Kunney up, so they're waiting for after 4 o'clock on Friday to go and look for you and put you in jail. So these are some of the things. We have to improve systems. We have to improve practices. We have to improve procedures so that our people can be well served. And it's so unfortunate that this issue has to be politicized, because this is one of the issues. I mean, I've always said there are certain issues that shouldn't be politicized when it comes to the issue of the rights, the justice issue that face our people. It will be me today speaking as a supporter of the government, and tomorrow it will be me not speaking as a supporter of the government that will face the same issue.
Thank you. Let me take our last caller here. And Mr. Kunney, to your point, justice will not be served until those who are unaffected are as outraged as those who are. This quote is from Benjamin Franklin. We have one last caller here. Dr. William Jala, you're live. Welcome to Focus on Liberia.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I've been paying close attention to the conversation and across the various panels, your panelists over there. And I just started to make a few points, especially with respect to Browning Samuka senatorial seat being withheld by the Supreme Court. I must have this to say. I think there is a constitutional crisis going on in our country right now. To hold up that seat and preventing Browning Samuka from taking his seat is a constitutional violation to the people of Lofa County. Let's face it. Browning Samuka was duly elected freely in a free and fair election, which he won. The election commission, before he contested the election commission, Browning Samuka was cleared to run for the senatorial seat. If there was any problem with him running, all right, because he had some legal issue, ongoing legal issue, the election commission should not have cleared him to run.
Thank you.
The fact that they cleared him to run and he won the seat, it's just unfair to deny him the right to represent the people of Lofa County. It's not only Browning Samuka they are hurting, the government is hurting, the Supreme Court is hurting.
Thank you.
The Supreme Court is also hurting the people of Lofa County. They are denying the people of Lofa County their constitutional right. And the reason why this is going on is because the people of Lofa are peace-loving people.
Thank you, William.
All right? That's the only reason why this is allowed to go on.
Thank you.
This cannot go on with other counties.
Firewall.
Please don't call Sino.
The Supreme Court
You from Sino?
It's a kangaroo Supreme Court. It has been bought. It has allowed itself to be interfered with by the Jayweh administration.
Thank you, Mr. Jala.
Which is wrong.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to make that clarification.
You are very loud and clear.
Some people keep on saying that he's a felon. He was indicted for felony.
Thank you, Mr. Jala.
That got nothing to do with him winning his election.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, sir. All right. Quickly, we have less than 10 minutes to go to end the show. So Mr. Kunney spoke about the issues. I mean, what caused it and how we can solve it. So the next, let me go to Mr. Sherif. We talk about the issues the justice system would describe. What is responsible for that, and how can we solve this problem? What are the solutions? You have 2 minutes.
Dennis, first, I just want to respond to Mr. Kunney, right? So
you have 2 minutes.
I have never, Mr. Kunney, I'm not, I made a comment and I stand by what I said, but you understand that you have been someone that I have respected for a very long time, even before we both appear on this show. If you remember when you ran for ULA president, I was one of your supporters. I was one of your supporters. And if you ran for anything again, I will be a supporter of yours. So when I make the comment about those paid agents and those field activists, the shoes will fit those who will fit. I don't think that shoes fit you, but the shoes will fit certain people and they can wear it. And that's where I'm going to end with that. But Dennis, the thing here is that in Liberia at this time, or before this time, we know that the judiciary has been used, and you said the right word. You described it correctly. It's been weaponized, right? So we know that, for example, on the eve of the 1985 election, a year before the 1985 election, we had the probate court very active. A probate court that had never been active was all of a sudden active and putting wrinkles in the way of opposition political parties. So you have political parties banned. The United People's Party was banned. The Liberian People's Party was banned. So you have all these other political parties that were banned from contesting the 1985 elections. And so you had other political parties that were relatively considered weaklings to take on the administration, or they were considered non-communist sympathizers to contest the 1985 election. So we have to be very careful as a nation. The justice system, or our judicial system as a whole, is something that we have to be very careful with. This administration is not careful. I don't think George Weah understands what is at stake. Okay, but that's a discussion for
30 seconds. Your solution,
Mr. Jayweh. When Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was in office, nothing under the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration was right as far as Mr. Jayweh is concerned. But now with George Weah, everything is right. This is the kind of cherry picking that that is unacceptable to me, and I will continue to speak against it. So
thank you, Mr. Sherif.
So I'm a CDC man, right?
We should continue to talk about this. I don't care who you are, Mr. Jayweh. I'm just saying that.
Thank you.
They can't do nothing wrong. But with Ellen Johnson's administration, everything was wrong.
Thank you. Let me go to call. What is responsible for the justice system that you spoke about? What is responsible for those things, and how can we fix it? You have 2 minutes, please.
I didn't understand the question. You're asking me what?
The justice system that you described, how things are not working. What you think is that? And how can we fix it?
So there's two things. It's quality of education and corruption and just lack of ethics, right? And professional ethics and conduct. So I would love to see some, attention paid to the school, to Arthur Grimes, and some investments made in the institution to bring it up to at least a regional standard of legal education, where we have these very, very bright law students going there and not being given the tools necessary. They have to struggle to obtain a legal education. And that's very unfortunate and has a detrimental effect on the society as a whole. This is where our lawyers come from. This is where our judges come from. Hopefully, when we wise up, this is where our lawmakers and senators, everyone will be coming from. Most countries, republics, are successful when they elect lawyers to public office, if these lawyers are properly prepared and understand these things. This is the problem with all of our education system. It is not just law school. It is starting from, K through 12. So we need massive investment in education, and then ethics as well. Not just legal ethics, but, ethics in public service. What are people supposed to do? You have a code of conduct, but you don't really have any ethical training. Most of us that work in the West, in developed countries, you have constant and continuous ethics training as you go on about your day. In your career, your year in your career. So every year you have refresher courses on anti-corruption, on what you do in certain situations, what is not acceptable. These things are lacking in Liberia, and I hope to see those things implemented. The last point, really quickly, Liberian is an organization that is about legal transparency. There has been a lot of foreigners that have come in and tried to help our legal and justice system through USAID and other multinational organizations, regional and EU has also invested a lot of resources. It doesn't seem to be having the kind of impact that we want. So we as Liberians have to take responsibility for this and start budgeting for and prioritizing our legal education system.
Thank you. Let me go to Councillor Jayweh. Before that, Jimmy Eastman says, Sherif, you have no justification by calling people names because they disagree with you. All you said to Mr. Kunney was to disarm him, but he is a trained cop, I remind you. Mr. Sherif,
I don't have to kowtow to Kunney. He knows that. Jayweh knows me. Everybody on this panel knows me. I am resolute, trust me. I mean, Jimmy Eastman may be one of the pay agents. I don't know.
Mr. Councillor Jayweh.
Yeah.
What is responsible and how can we fix it? If there are any issues that that you spoke about, the issues you spoke about in the justice system, what is causing these issues and how can we fix that?
I think some practical things need to be done. When I in Liberia, I visited quite a lot, and I saw judges handling, particularly the trial judges in the Saki court, were handling cases where there were no law clerks to be able to assist to do research work for them, to assist them to even draft their opinions before they can finalize it. That's a problem. I think resources need to be much more invested into particularly lower court system to ensure that law clerks, at least 2 law clerks assigned to minimum 2 law clerks assigned to a Saki judge. If you know what a Saki court is, it's a general trial jurisdiction, so a lot of work being done there. So having law clerks there will be important. The other thing that I thought is necessary is to have enough resources into the system so that all criminal cases that go before the court, the criminal courts, for example, where people's rights tend to be violated, where pre-trial detention, and Mr. Kunney spoke about, seems to be the order of the day. That indictments in cases are moved forward. It's very difficult to determine how many cases a trial judge in the lower court is to determine within a 42 days period. There's 10 days opening section, 10 days a closing section of the court. I think that time frame is insufficient, and I think the work in there, the dockets are not. No one served as a watchdog to ensure that those cases are speedily done. That's a problem for me. I also want to see that there will be no justice in chambers, as we do have currently. That you can leave from the lower court, take a legal process from the lower court to justice in chambers. I would suggest that an intermediate appellate court, I've written about that, be established in the Liberia, be divided into 5 counties. There is a 3-man intermediate appellate court sitting in Banga, for example, to cover up Nima, Lofa, what the other closer county, Banjida, River G, and maybe Maryland. So that all the matters don't have to travel to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court also under no duty to be able to decide the number of cases that go before them. That needs to be changed. I think the Supreme Court should be limited to handle only constitutional matters. And cases that go before the intermediate appellate court, one could be sitting in Grand Bassa, one could be sitting in Bond County, the other one could be sitting in Monrovia, I'm talking about intermediate appellate court, so that the pressure of the docket being congested is removed from the Supreme Court if they are only dealing with constitutional matter based upon the writ of a writ of not appeal, but a statutory that will also help the system. I will also think that our justice should be given judges should be given international exposure. They should be able to come to the United States, sit in some of these courts, and see how trial proceedings are had. I think we should remove ourselves a little bit more from the procedural aspect. Liberia practice of law is much more on the procedural process. For example, when we appeared on this show, we end up by saying that if the court asks you what standing do you have, the court will not go to the merit of the matter. The fact that you don't have a standing, you cannot prove that you have been injured. You cannot.
Thank you, Councillor.
Those things need to be addressed. More funding need to be had, and there should be some. I said a judicial conference.
Thank you, Councillor. We're almost out of time. Tomorrow at 6 p.m. we have the literary hour, the promise of new beginnings. So join us. Professor K. Moses Namwe and Jackie Saya will be here to present the literary hour. This is the wind down. This is the last day of the year. And so the promise of new beginning, you don't want to miss it. Before that, at 2 p.m., I'm going to be here to sit with the Deputy Presidential Press Secretary, Mr. Smith Toby, to go through the President's office year in review. There are a lot of things a lot of activities the President of Liberia was involved in. So we're going to do a review of the President's office. You don't want to miss that. Last but not the least, we want to say for 1 minute each, we want to do the segment everyone has been waiting for. That's the Tabata session. Tabata in a Southeastern language means total nonsense. This time we start with Mr. Sherif. What's your Tabata of the week?
I don't want to go to George Weah, dropping these CDs because I think
go to the Tabata.
I think Gore is up to something. Gore is up to something about that, so I want to go away from that. I want to talk about Mira Brewer, who show up on the steps of the Capitol building and said the Capitol building stunk. That and she was dancing around. She was summoned. This was a couple of weeks ago or more. She took her people there and they were singing and dancing. She said, clean your bathrooms, your offices stink. Clean your offices stink. I actually enjoyed that, but that's my top of that week.
Mr. Sherif, we have the clip. Let me go to Call. Call was the top of the week.
Yeah, I think for me, there's so many things, but the one that actually that shocked me was the president playing on Grand Cru team against Bond County. I mean, that was disturbing. This is why. He's president for the Republic of Liberia, not for Grand Cru County, not for Cru people. And the last person that should be taking the side of one county over another should be the president. And it was just appalling. It sent the wrong message. It looked very tribalistic, divisive. If people from both Grand Cru and Bond County should be offended by this. I mean, you've got we had President Doe who loved football, but he played for Lone Star. He never played on Grand Jita team against another county. When you're president, you don't do that. I mean, imagine if Blyden were to adorn, the uniform of one state, Connecticut, and go against Texas. It would cause an uproar. That's my Tabata. That disunity, that horrible display of tribalism from
Thank you.
the highest office in our country.
And Councillor, you will be last, so keep preparing. Let me go to Mr. Kunney. Mr. Kunney, what's your tabata of the week?
My tabata of the week is the fact that whenever we talk about this issue, justice, we fail to recognize the impact on the ordinary people. We always talk high-profile cases. When thousands of ordinary people are languishing, we don't have time for their justice, but we have time for the justice of the politically connected, the powerful. I think that is the tabata of the intelligentsia elite, always looking out only for themselves and not the ordinary people.
Thank you. Councillor Jayweh.
I'm much more concerned with the budgeting and how our money is used by every government. For example, the current budget has, the budget from Ellen Johnson Salitan has always had 200,000 for the counties. It's surprising and it's discouraging when I travel Liberia for the 6 months I was there. Going to my own country, the grass is almost covering the road. I would hope that our legislature, our political leaders can go into, sorry about that, can ensure that the budget is much more money is allocated and appropriated for the counties instead of the president office or any other office having huge amount of money that is difficult to justify.
Thank you so much. And before we end the show, I just want to play a short clip. You may know by now that Focus on Liberia Chief Political Analyst Mr. Wilmot Kunney is in Monrovia, and FOL was.
I need to answer this call.
FOL was in the house at the executive mansion. Oh,
hello.
If I can put it that way, and so I want you to see that.
I'm not making any comment now.
Mr. President,
That's why.
This is Charles Godo, National Chairman of the National Patriotic Party and National Secretary General of the Coalition for Democratic Change, USA, from Minnesota.
Good afternoon, Mr. President and fellow Liberians. My name is Wilmot Kunney, CDC USA. I'm also the Chief Political Analyst for Focus on Liberia, the proponent of the CDC first round victory on that platform. I'm the former president of the Union of Liberia Associations in the Americas.
What, Joe?
Good afternoon, Papa. Good afternoon, Mr. President, platform guests. My name is Michael Gilman. I'm the lead presenter for Cllr Talk online radio, and also I'm the chairman for the Concerned Liberian Network, a group of Liberians in the diaspora that have come together to present a package to you today for the First Lady, and we are honored to be in your presence, sir. Thank you.
That was FOL Chief Political Analyst representing in the House. and he calls himself the proponent of the CDC first round victory. Mr. Kunney, just give us a gist of what it felt like being the presence of the president at the Jamaica resort.
Well, it was an humbling event. You know, we were truly honored. The president got to know that his supporters were in town, so he decided to have lunch with us. Earlier, I think he had met a larger group of Liberians representing the Decembrists, and then, but this one was a party, political party affairs, and we were just in our natural element, and we had fun.
What was on the menu?
I mean, typical Liberian food. They had rice, they had salad, they had chicken, fish, just everything. So
that sounds like the menu of the elite.
No,
The intelligentsia. The seafood intelligentsia can eat that what you ate.
Since when I was standing up there, I said, I know Dennis Ja is watching. He will pick. I mean, the boy never surprises me. I know you are going to pick up this clip, and he did pick up the clip.
Well, I mean, Sam Wallace said, my tabata of the week is the ongoing belief by politicians that they can talk their way into coalition and collaboration, all the while engaging in actions that foster deep mistrust. My tabata of the week is the absence or the silence of the politicians talking anything about the budget.
Yeah.
That surprised me, and I think that's the biggest tabata. I mean, if you cannot talk about the budget, what else can you talk about? I'm not saying you should criticize. If you like it, whatever way, say something. Let know that you are looking at it. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming. Mr. Kunney, your internet survived the entire show. I'm proud of you.
You must get some money from President Weah.
After that spectacular visit.
We are supporting that data now. You know how it goes.
Let's go around the room. Let's go around the room for your closing statement. This time we have 50 seconds each. We are way out of time. And let me start with Councillor Jayweh. Your closing comments.
I'm just happy to see Mr. Mohamed Sherif for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. Sherif.
Mr. Sherif.
I'm honored.
Mohamed Sherif, right?
Yeah, this is the Mohamed Sherif that you've been knowing all along.
No, I never knew you. I never saw you before. So I'm happy to see you.
You guys interacted on the listserv, exchange emails. That's the
the Sherif who are part of Wilmot. Is that so?
Oh my God.
Mr. Sherif, your closing comments.
Well, thank you, Dennis. So, Jayweh, so you know, true to form, this man has never changed. You know, Jayweh is going to be Jayweh. And what are you going to say? Jayweh is on record for saying some of the most horrible things about Mandingo people, really. And, you know, yeah, very, very horrible. And he has said some supportive things about the NPFL and all the atrocities against Mandingo. So he actually hailed that. And so, you know, it is what it is. I guess you have your free speech. But at some point, we have to come to terms with ourselves. And as ourselves are what you're doing.
You have 20 more seconds, Mr. Sherif.
Your actions may be contributing to something larger. You may be causing other things out there. Right. So we have to, you know, we have to come to terms. And
thank you.
We also have to respect one another. You don't have to like my people, but I'm telling you, I am a Liberian. A lot of Mandingos are Liberian. They are legitimate Liberians. There's no reason why a Mandingo person.
Thank you, Mr. Sherif. If you can shift that to the topic for the night.
Just wrapping up now, Dennis.
Yeah.
One of the things I've always said is that Liberia is one of the countries where people claim to not know their origins, right? Everybody thinks they came down from heaven or germinated from the face of the earth. When you come to America, you see Irish Americans, Polish Americans, Ukrainian Americans, they celebrate their heritage. We don't do that in Liberia. And so Jayweh, this is Mohamed Sherif. I'm a normal human being. And
the Mandingo Nation. I remember that.
Thank you. Call your closing comment.
Wow. I was going to close with something else about how education is important and we need to invest more in our education system. We have a nation of geniuses that we're not investing in, especially our young people. And as a mother, that's just a priority for me. All of our institutions need the support of finances and need budgetary allocations beyond what we even have in our national coffers. So we've got to think of creative ways fund education and to better prepare ourselves and our fellow citizens, especially our children that are coming up, to face the challenges of the future. That being said, part of education is understanding who we are and where we're going. And Mr. Sherif, your comments broke my heart. I'm from Nimba. I am, I am from a part of Nimba Ganta, which borders Guinea, and I have origins in Guinea as well as on the Liberia side of the river. Liberia is an immigrant nation. It was established. The independence was fought for by immigrants. In the constitutional structure of the country is that of welcoming people who come. And I just think that needs to be discussed a little bit more, but thank you for your words. You have my respect.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Kunney, you have the last word.
Yeah, well, with regard to the topic under discussion tonight, I think we should, as a country, pay attention to our pre-trial detention population. That is very, very important. Everybody should be given a fair chance at justice. And when people are arrested, they should be tried and let the court decide their fate instead of languishing behind bars without trial. The other thing I want to say, like I'm from the police side of things. I'm really, really interested in training. We have to advance our level of training to do investigations into complex issues of crime that we may encounter. There are a lot of new concepts, new theories, new technologies in investigation. And this is where my passion lies. I hope to make some contribution, maybe as a teacher somewhere, so that we can train the next generation of law enforcement officers, specifically in the area of investigation, so that when something occurs, someone can provide some answers to both the victims and the general population. That is also important. Then the final thing I would like to say is that I think there is this American politician, I think they say Benjamin Franklin. He said, ours is a republic if we fight to keep it that way. We have a democracy in our country. It will remain a democracy if Liberians fight for it. The argument on this platform has never been that the system is perfect, was perfect, or is perfect now. The argument is that ours is an ongoing effort. For whatever imperfection that we have today, it is the responsibilities of citizens to change their own conditions within the confines of the law. The alternative should not be considered, because we will keep going backward and backward and backward. We have all of the election coming. If we dislike the Supreme Court, change the political system so that you can have a new, change the legislators. You have all these powers. Let us advocate, let us educate, let us promote, let us improve our system. Let us take seriously our responsibilities as citizens while we enjoy the privilege of citizenship. Thank you.
Thank you so much. The issue of justice is very important. I believe that everything in the country hinges on justice. If people's rights are respected, if people can have a legal recourse for whatever affects them, I think the country is going to go way better than what it is. If people can even sue the president and their grievance be heard, I think that will go a long way in solving a lot of the problems. But the issue of justice is a continuous fight that all of us should be engaged in. And I want to leave our audience with this African proverb, because when you are fighting for justice, when you are fighting for fair play, equal rights, there may be distractions, but as the proverb says, a hunter who is tracking an elephant does not stop to throw stones at birds. So as we rally everyone to advocate for justice, there may be distraction, but don't get distracted because we are tracking an elephant do not stop to throw stones at birds. On that note, I also want to announce the issue of justice, the legal system is so important that Focus on Liberia has of 2022, we're going to come up with a brand new show about our justice system. Know your rights and responsibility. And we're going to have some of the lawyers who will be part of that. And I'm happy to announce Councillor Frederick Jayweh, Councillor Jerome Vrodia, and Justice Kabina Janet. They will be starting this show right here on FOL. That's why keep it here at FOL, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, on behalf of all of us here, I say, have a good night. Remember the song that says, we are all Liberians.
We are Liberians. Liberia is our home. Liberian people. Liberia.